Soon, everything is going to change with real estate. The recent landmark settlement involving the National Association of Realtors is poised to reshape the landscape for buying and selling homes, especially when it comes to how the agents are being compensated. If you have missed the news on this, you landed on the right video to get you up to speed on what will change soon when you're transacting in real estate, how it's going to impact values, and how you are having to prepare your new strategy in the newer landscape of how to land in the best real estate deal. As a managing broker for a boutique real estate company and a mortgage loan originator with over 20 years of field experience performing over 1,000 transactions, I'll share my perspective on these changes and also suggestions on how you can be better prepared when all these changes are going to be implemented come July of this year. For those of you who want to know quickly if the housing market will start to give more affordable houses, I'm sorry to say the answer is most probably no. But here are the key aspects of the settlement. Point number one, the buyers are now required to pay for their own agent services. There will be prohibition of buyer agent compensation offers being shown on the MLS. Point number two, there will now be a requirement for written buyer agreements specifying the compensation from buyers to their buyer agents. There will be clear restriction on claiming that the buyer broker services are free. Another aspect to this is there is also emphasis on seller approval and disclosure that all the commissions are fully negotiable. However, agents can still call and inquire about the commissions directly, and then the seller agents also can advertise them through other means like their own websites. Buyer agents will need to have a signed agreement with their buyers detailing the terms of the service and the value that they provide. So let me also simplify and clarify the context. We do represent commercial buyers and sellers. I see that it is exactly how it is done there. By default, each party pays for their own representation, and if there is any compensation for any agents, it is negotiated when the offer is presented. In fact, even in mortgages, the buyer paid compensation it clearly showed on the initial loan estimate, and once that loan estimate is signed, it cannot go up. The compensation stays the same for the loan originator. I see that these similar standards are trickling down to the residential real estate market. Let me give you the progression of events leading to the current situation. You want to hear the backstory. Back in 2019, a lawsuit was filed in Missouri by home sellers. They argued that the existing rule where sellers had to pay the buyer agents, which is referred to as cooperative compensation model, was totally unfair. This practice claimed led to higher costs for home sellers, violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. So traditionally, when listing any home on the MLS, a seller's broker was required to offer some compensation to the buyer's agent, whoever brings a buyer, even if it was minimal, even if it was $1 or a small percentage, but in general, it was from 2.5% to 3%. This lawsuit suggested that this particular requirement incentivized the buyer's agent to prefer homes offering higher commissions, which also inflated the home selling costs. Moreover, the lawsuit questioned why sellers had to pay for the buyer agent, especially when these agents were supposed to be helping the buyers secure the best deals. The lawsuit implicated major brokerages like Keller Williams and Remax in colluding to maintain high commission rates. This case turned now into a class action lawsuit by April 2022. By October of 2023, after a quick short deliberation, the jury found the National Association of Realtors and accused the big brokerages guilty, ordering them to pay approximately $1.78 billion in damage. The amount could have escalated to over $5 billion due to triple damages. Suddenly, on March 15, 2024, the real estate industry faced a significant shift when National Association of Realtors announced a settlement of $418 million over the next 4 years, avoiding the potential of $5 billion liability without really admitting any guilt. Let me examine the customer side. What are these changes and how it's going to impact them? If you're a buyer, now you have to pay your agent out of your pocket. If you're a seller, you're not obligated to pay the buyer's agent. So if you're a real estate agent, contrary to the popular belief, this settlement doesn't cap or dictate what realtors can charge. Point number two, it's a misconception that the settlement introduces the ability for sellers to bypass the agent compensation for bringing a buyer in. In fact, this practice wasn't mandatory but was common and effective tradition. commission. When somebody brings a buyer, you compensate them. So with these new adjustments, the MLS is now more inclusive, accepting listings without the need to offer compensation, marking a change in the landscape. Point number 3, the idea that the sellers are now prohibited from compensating the buyer agents is still a myth. Such offers won't be displayed on the MLS, yet the freedom remains for the sellers to use compensation as a strategy to attract the buyers, to have a way to make their listing stand out through various marketing channels. So the sellers do have the same options, and the dynamics of deals can still include negotiations around these agent fees. Point number 4, expecting the settlement to drastically reduce home prices and solve our affordability crisis I feel is a myth, because that's not how real estate values work. In fact, I was shocked that Joe Biden's White House team were able to capture some of these mass media coverage, and then they talked as if this is going to change the affordability for Americans. See, real estate values dance to the tune of supply and demand. While a slight commission squeeze could potentially lower sale prices marginally, but the essence of home's value in the eyes of the sellers, that would remain unchanged. It reminds me of a time wherein the title fees changed a little bit, they dropped, but it had no impact on the home values. The true challenge of affordability lies in the ever increasing market values, but this settlement will have no impact on the home values is my opinion. The settlement's fallout has stirred considerable debate, with concerns over potential negative impacts on buyer representation. It is worth noting that all these sensational headlines that I've been seeing in the past few weeks have muddled the waters, proclaiming the demise of the 6% commission and misrepresenting the settlement's nuances. Such narratives actually overlook the reality that commission structures have always been flexible, influenced by negotiations between sellers and agents. So there is really no change. Who is the biggest beneficiary out of these changes? Let's examine that. First is, since it became a class action lawsuit, that could bring money to some of you. Look for communication on this. If you have used a real estate agent to sell your property recently, there is millions up for grabs, so you might see some communication on that. While the settlement sum may seem monumental, it's around 400 million, but when divided amongst all the eligible consumers, the impact diminishes in value. It could be just a mere drop in the ocean. You might get maybe 10 to 20 bucks per family. The legal architects behind the scenes are the true financial victors. They were seeking over $80 million in fees from this settlement. Then let's look at who have no impact or benefit from this. All the savvy buyers out there who probably did not need a real estate agent in the first place, the investors, the big institutional investors, all of you guys stand to save, because when you're ready to sell the property, you don't have to really offer any compensation to the buyer's agent. Who is the biggest victim out of this? The first victim is the first-time home buyers, who typically do not have lot of down payment saved up. They'll not be able to afford to pay a buyer's agent. Same with the VA buyers. And of course, there will be the real estate agents who might be suffering out of this, because if you're only representing buyers, you will have to go the extra mile of negotiating your compensation with the buyers. Well, previously, the seller agent already negotiated your comp and you directly landed and earned that money. So for seller agents, it is more work for you coming, because when you list the home, you might get calls from lot of unrepresented buyers wanting to see the home. Some of them could be tire kickers. Before, the buyer agents acted as tour guides without any compensation, but now the seller agents have to be available to show the property, and also potentially maybe representing the buyers, exposing themselves for lot of liability. If you're a buyer agent, now you have the extra burden to prove your value and negotiate your own comp. If you're a part-time agent and you have earned some of the commission and also kick back some of your commission to the buyers, and that's how you earn your most of the commission, then your business model is going to be completely disrupted, because the sellers might not be offering compensation to the buyer agents directly. So it will be more work for you to differentiate which homes are being offered buyer agent commission while others are not. Let us look at the probable changes and the solutions to these new changes. First is for the customer. If you're a buyer, learn about the 90 things buyer agents do, and then you prepare to hear a la carte services. Maybe the attorneys will join in and they'll try to offer specific services to help you, the unrepresented buyer. If you are trying to go without a buyer agent, learning everything about that is going to help you. And of course, if you're a seller, we are seller agents and we represent a lot of sellers. We help them market. You still have to hire a seller agent to professionally market your home for for top dollars. So the last message is for the media. I heard a podcast last week from a major media outlet. It was laced with a lot of untrue and unfounded data that I was just blown away as to how they are able to freely communicate all this. So the topics are deep. So I challenge the media. It is time to step up. It is time that you take time, do your research, and I urge you to speak to some of the industry leaders, insiders, the authorities, and people like me who are in the trenches and then report the truth. I want you to stop sensationalizing with misleading headlines and hooks and then burying the cryptic details in the articles. In closing, I agree that this settlement marks a significant shift. It underscores the need for adaptability, negotiation skills, and transparency in the real estate profession. I'm a managing broker of a real estate company and a mortgage loan originator, and I want to know your insights. Any other comments that you may have on this topic would be very welcome. Be sure to subscribe, share with anyone who might be keen to hear more on these new changes.